yeah, okay, there's still clearly a very important place for your physical pitch. But now go look at how many advert views that car had on Auto Trader or our website yesterday.
Yeah.
Like 10 times the amount. So where's your focus? Where should your focus be? And the point around sort of making sure that you're on it is, yes, if you've got a big forecourt, you're not going to be looking at every car every single day without spending a lot of time. But the world of automation is here. And things can tell you where you are suboptimal. That car, for example, hasn't got an attention grabber. That car has got what appears to be a copy and pasted description.
Hello and welcome to the Armchair Show. I'm your moderator, Tanisha, and I'm so pleased to have you guys with us here today. Today I've got two fantastic guests on the show, and I guess we'll kick off with a quick introduction. Ian, if you'd like to introduce who you are and what you do.
Yes, hi everyone. My name's Ian Godbold. I'm from IGC Digital, Ian Godbold Consultancy. We look to improve dealers' profit performance.
Perfect.
And I'm Sam Luscombe. I'm the sales director for Luscombe's Leeds, a franchised dealership representing Suzuki and MG. Been in the industry now about 6 years, so still relatively fresh, but it's an exciting time and plenty going on.
Perfect. Fantastic. And I know that this morning when you guys have come in, we've already been discussing the used car market a lot this morning. So I guess to kick us off, can you give us a quick peek, a quick overview in terms of what's happening with used cars in the market at the moment?
Yeah, I think you're seeing a real buoyant market at this precise time, a real efficient marketplace as well. More stock seems to be available at the moment. I think we've done some analysis recently that was saying that stock was up 17.5% on vehicle listings versus this time last year, which says there's a bit of an ease of stock, probably coming from some of the defleeting and some of the new vehicle sales. Is that what you're saying, Sam?
Yes and no. In certain sectors of the market, obviously, 3-year-old, 4-year-old stock is becoming very difficult to get hold of. The cars simply weren't produced, and that's a real bread and butter for us. We see a mixture within MG. Obviously, the phenomenal growth of that brand means there are a lot of the car parks growing exponentially, so we've got opportunities within that. Suzuki, on the other hand, clearly a few product challenges. The volume simply wasn't there 3 years ago, as with most. And finding that used car stock is a bit more difficult. It just means you've got challenges and you've got to widen your net to go and source used cars.
And are there any particular trends that you're seeing at the moment with the market? Anything that dealers should be aware of?
I think you're seeing more channels to actually source stock now. You're certainly seeing the rise of C2D, so customer to dealers now, and there's a lot more stock that's been appearing on them, and that can be a really, really profitable route if you do that correctly. Well, looking at that data daily, that's absolutely key. I've got some examples where I'm seeing some dealers where they've managed to buy some real top of the range vehicles because the consumer's not listed that vehicle correctly. They're not listed all the type of vehicle and the pack it comes with, and they've made some good benefits from that. Alternatively, though, you have to look at that data because sometimes you do still receive that stock and it does require a bit more prep work.
From a dealer's perspective, that's actually it's a blessing and a curse, because a lot of those cars that would have been primarily 5-10 years ago dealer part exchanges were now not getting the opportunity. I've had to tell my sales teams, stop asking the customer if they've got a part exchange, because they're not lying to you if they say no. If you say, what are you currently driving and what you're doing with it, customers tend not to lie to you. They'll tell you, oh, well, I'm driving a Suzuki Swift. It's going on motorway next week. Like, no, I want that car off you. So this breadth of sort of consumer to dealer is putting a middleman in between us sourcing the cars directly from consumers. Now, clearly, it gives us a geographical spread, and we can go buy cars from around the country. But I'd much rather if I had, and I know there's lots of dealers now creating their own car buying services and that sort of thing. That's certainly an area of focus as used car supply becomes a little bit more tricky.
I think you're seeing more and more dealers. You're absolutely right. The we want your car, and you're seeing some real progress strategy from that from some dealers. Going out to the database, of course, but they're using those different channels. They're not just using email. They're using SMS. They're using WhatsApp. They're including the we want your car as part of the vehicle that they're selling. So merchandised imagery, so the consumer actually knows when they're starting to research their vehicle. Mm-hmm. Oh, actually, these guys actually want my car as well. And you're seeing those strategies in place where they're looking, actually, they are pricing and that they want that vehicle based on the desirability of that vehicle, and obviously the tools that are available now in the marketplace that can give them that desirability. But it is really working on those strategies to source them. I see it also within new cars. We're new cars, and you look at some of the channels to market on new cars. I'm seeing some really good strategies by some of the really higher end franchise dealer groups of how they're looking to price their new cars versus on the Part X that's actually coming the other way.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think from our perspective, what I'd really like to see is a reduction in the friction of us buying cars, and that's where the likes of Motorway and Carwow have done such a good job, because they guide the seller, the vendor, if you like, through that process of taking better pictures. It used to be brilliant. You used to go on Auto Trader and find someone who had no idea what they got, and they'd photographed it really badly. No one was ever going to buy it. And you'd go on there and you'd sort of nick a car direct from them.
But I think that's where that efficient marketplace is now, because what is an efficient marketplace is where the consumer has all the information available,
Sure.
And they've got that now. They know what price it's going to be because you've got pricing flags on there. They'll know what the hell the description is because it's telling the story. It's telling the star on the car. You've got that information to hand, which makes it that efficient. You can't nick a car now.
Absolutely, but it puts more on us doing the job well. So there's no point trying to come in and kick somebody in the knees for it. And from the outset, you've got to have a sensible conversation, because everyone knows what that car's roughly worth. It actually, from our perspective, I know we're going on a bit of a tangent here, it puts a far greater emphasis on that appraisal being done absolutely spot on. And we've now got our sales teams, because we operate in a slightly different environment where we give our sales execs full control over the deal. So they value their own part exchanges, they prop their own finance, they do the whole thing themselves, which some dealers will look at this and go, what on earth, are you absolutely mad? And don't get me wrong, we do have some challenges and we have had some horror stories. But generally speaking, in the used car market, it fits into our model, because they get paid on profit of the used car, which means that they're incentivized to bring it in with the right sort of margin. And if they're seeing prep bills of £1,000, 1,200 quid because they haven't appraised it properly, to the extent there, I'm now getting our guys to go out and, like an independent would do, like a used car buyer would go out and, well, actually your discs are a bit lipped and your pads look a bit like. So we're now getting to that point where used car sourcing, and I understand your point about there's more stock in the marketplace, but it is difficult. It's becoming more and more difficult and more costly to acquire that stock, because obviously, as everyone knows, margin pressure is back. Used car margins are significantly down on where they have been, certainly for us. Now, clearly, some of that is because we had a whale of a time during COVID and margins were through the roof. We're back to a market where that's not the case. The difference is now that we've obviously interest rate pressure as well. So stocking is more expensive for a lot of dealers.
I think it's interesting what you say about Part X. What I've seen with some dealer groups now is that they're tasking the actual salesman that they have a percentage of vehicles they've got to buy as well. So, I see it now with sort of 40%. So they sell vehicles, but they have to bring in 40%. And they're also putting in place now, what you start to see is, why no Part X? Where it used to be sort of why no e-sales, why no Part X? They're understanding why couldn't we get that Part X? Because they've been off and got the price on online. Why have they not been able to secure that? Once you start going through that and start put those KPIs in place, you start to see the reasons of why it wasn't purchased. It's amazing that some of them don't even ask the question, is there a Part X coming the other way?
Yeah. So. And actually, a lot of that comes back down to the world changed during COVID, and a lot of businesses went to, let's just pay you a bonnet fee, because actually a lot of the profit is controlled by, it's not the salesman's job. They haven't done anything special to generate the much increased profits that we were seeing during COVID. So a lot of places went, well, actually, let's just pay you a flat fee. We've resisted that and made sure that our salespeople get paid on the profit of the vehicle, because that also means that the way we operate means that they've got a lot more freedom to make the right decisions, which also, the contrary to that is dealerships where you've got a bonnet fee. You often find the salesman coming to the sales manager and trying to deal a sales manager. He's working for the customer. He's not working for the business. He's just, all right, I've got to get a number. And if I can tell the sales manager that they want 8.5 for it, and they want 7.5, right, we deal on 8, happy days. We're moving forward. We don't have that problem, because obviously our guys want to make sure they're maintaining profit in the vehicle.
Yeah, which is it's obviously good for the business. It increases your add-on rate.
It does. It does make it. Don't get me wrong. It creates its own sort of challenges in making sure that the team are fully trained, but also comfortable. Making sure they're only valuing what they're comfortable valuing. If they get something that comes in that's like a bit out of the ordinary, whoa, I need some help here.
Yeah.
You've already mentioned a few, but what would you say are the key challenges right now with used cars? What are the key challenges that, if you were Ian advising a dealership right now, where would you say they should really focus their efforts?
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned one. I mean, obviously, stock sourcing. It starts at stock sourcing. I think that is that's a pain point. But as I say, there are opportunities that come with that pain point, as we discussed. I think the other point I come across is prep times. As we alluded to, that particularly independents are buying older stock now. So they're buying older stock, which is going to cost them more preps. It's going to take longer in prep time. So it's looking at how you can improve and decrease the prep time, because it's all about speed to market at the end of the day. You're focusing on that stock turn, reducing your days to sell. So if you can look at your prep challenges, or how do you get that through prep quicker? How do you get it online quicker with imagery? I think that's one of the key things that we look at, and we look to reduce, keeping in stock, regular parts, all all those good things that are there, that you're just looking to decrease it by a day or two, because it's going to increase your profits. They're generally what I see is the big headaches. But Sam, you've probably got more.
No, you're right. That is, and especially with technicians as well. Everyone knows that technician market has been the most challenging it's been for years.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been a challenge, right?
And it's now even more so, because obviously those costs of prep are going up. Technicians' wages are going up significantly. There's a shortage of them, and actually doing that internal prep work, when in a time where stock is short, you then go, well, let's buy something a little bit older. Let's try and make sure that we're getting that same sort of the volume of stock. You buy something a little bit older. Oh, it needs a bit more work. Well, that work you ends up being work that you're not doing in retail, and we're massively overbooked in terms of retail work and warranty work. It's a busy time, certainly for our franchises where the park's growing massively, and the volume of new car sales means more PDIs. So the solution to this stock problem is that you buy older. You end up prepping it, and your margins get squeezed. It just all becomes a bit more difficult. So. There's no one sort of one size fits all solution.
We used to have a problem of empty service bays, didn't we? We'd always want to fill our service bays. Now so much of that time is taken up by actually prepping our own stock that we no longer have empty service bays, but we're not making the same profit off those service bays that we used to.
If I could take on more technicians, if you could give me a conveyor belt of technicians, thank you. I'll have you. I'll have you, and I'll have you. Just need more.
Like input job advert here.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a good position to be in. I'd much rather be in that position than wondering where our next hour is going to be sold.
Yeah,
but it creates challenges elsewhere.
But where there's challenges, there's opportunities, right? So what would you say on the polar side is the biggest opportunities that we have right now with used cars?
For me, having not had like I say, I've been in the industry properly 6 years now, back in sort of dealership. And when you don't have that inherent knowledge of the industry from 10, 20, 30 years ago, I don't think I could have done that job now without the software and the tools that are available to you now to source used cars. Years ago, it used to be, because obviously my dad's been in the industry a long time, I've followed the industry from afar when I was at university and that sort of thing. But it used to be you had to know. You'd have a glasses guide and whatever, but you'd really have to have a lot of knowledge. Now, the internet, Auto Trader retail ratings, market health, all the sort of stats that are available to you give you a real good grounding of what cars are selling quickly, what's good stock, what's not good stock. Obviously, you've got to overlay that, and we talk about opportunities and challenges. At our sort of scale, we're in a nice position where we can blend the data and first-hand knowledge. If you get to bigger scale, a lot of these companies are far more reliant on the data, because if you sat in an office, you're not actually there on the shop floor all the time. So the opportunity is just finding that right mix. The tools out there now are phenomenal. You can analyze auction catalogs in seconds and go, right, okay, that's the 5 cars I want to be bidding on. And it cuts down a lot of that time. But ultimately, data is data, and you've got to overlay it with your own knowledge.
I've got to say, we don't know how lucky we are to be in the UK market space. I work in Europe, a couple of channels, and literally there is not the data that you get from the likes of your Auto Trader, from the likes of Motors just recently launched. Understanding, okay, how well you've merchandised the vehicle. Have you imaged it right? Have you described the car? And then have you priced the vehicle to the desirability of that vehicle? And that's the game changer. Pricing the vehicle to how desirable that car is, because then that works back to the sourcing. We really don't know how lucky we are, because in the Spanish market at the moment, we're having to set off crawlers to find all the information, bring it back, and then analyze pricing. Then we add our own desirability
It's
rate.
the same in South Africa, so you're right.
We don't know how lucky we are. And I get laughed at sometimes where I feedback and say, how can you not hit used car budget on a monthly basis? Because if you take the guesswork out, use the logic and use the data, you'll get to your budget. And that's as simple as that. And I really don't think we realise how lucky we are to work in the UK marketplace the way we do.
Yeah.
But look at your place of opportunity. The software that's out there now, the new software that's recently come out there and actually been able to source vehicles now, where the whole web has been crawled, and you can see actually vehicle listings on Facebook now. You can see the whole market space, which gives you the opportunity to purchase. But not only that, it can give you the price now of what the price will be in franchise, what the price will be in a used car supermarket, what the price will be in Indie, how quickly you'll sell it through this channel, this channel, and this channel. It basically allows you to understand, right, where you're going to place that vehicle to get your best return on the investment. Do I go for the profit or do I want to sell it quickly? You've now got that, and hearing you using the software that you do. But basically seeing that, you can't fail not to get to budget.
But there's so much software available now, from sourcing the vehicle to pricing it, describing it, photography, imagery, advertising it. So much software. And sometimes that's a bit overwhelming, isn't it, as a dealer? So is there a particular starting point if you're a dealer now that's perhaps less savvy to know what software they should and shouldn't use to start with?
Yeah, you've got to be very careful, because everything in a demo looks fantastic. And every bit of software you get presented to you goes, yeah, I can see that can help me.
Yeah,
I can see that can help. And like, if I took every single bit of software that said it'll help me sell one more car, either that or I'd be selling a lot of cars, or I'd have a lot of costs going out every month. And ultimately, you got to make sure you're balancing that. So, from our perspective, clearly we spend a lot of money with Auto Trader every month.
Who doesn't?
Unfortunately, it's one of those where we wince every time we get the bill, but then you go, well, could you live without it? Probably not. But one of the things that they've done quite well over the recent period is integrated a lot of the data in with that, forecasted valuations. It'll tell us what they expect the valuation of that car to look like in the average amount of days it would take to sell that car. So that's really useful. You just have to, and certainly my advice to smaller dealers, if you're dealing with an AM100 and you've got sort of thousands of cars in stock, you, from a statistical point of view, average themselves out. You can work on the basis that, we've got enough volume here that data telling us this. When you're dealing with a forecourt size of 20, 50, 100, you go too heavily reliant on the data. The data's not infallible. The data can't tell you that I won't swear, that doom blue car or that bright red one that's just everyone knows is not going to sell. The data doesn't know that red car is particularly worse than another car. So you've got to overlay that with your own.
That's the key with all data, isn't it? Exactly. I always say to people, data is valuable, but human knowledge is also super valuable. It's
interesting you chose a red car there. That's generally what you see. I think though, data. You've obviously got that knowledge, and you will have dealers that will have that gut knowledge as well. So actually, we know why this one's sticky. But I think now what you've got the opportunity now with the data that's available is actually you can start to see how to price a vehicle in different regions, and that's becoming quite exciting, because obviously you can find different regions through the different classifiers. But when you look at the country as a whole, when you see every listing, and then you start to segment that data, actually I can get 1 or 2% more margin if through this dealership here than where it's located currently here. And it's about, how do you move that cost effectively? And there's software out there now that allows you to do that. But actually placing that vehicle of coming in to say, look, I know I'm going to get more margin if I place it in this region because I know it's 1 or 2% behind. And that sort of data science, that really starts to get real return and moving an exciting role that we're in.
Exactly. And also you've got to take it with a pinch of salt to an extent, because sometimes, for example, we had a car that had stuck in stock for 120 days. We'd reduced it. It was down to like 90% price position. It was cheap. You look at it and go, why is it not sold? Right, okay, it's not selling. Stick it up $1,000 and it's sold.
Boom.
And you just go, that defies what everything should tell you. But you just go, well, actually, is the data telling me it's too cheap?
That's where skills, knowledge, and experience is super valuable, isn't it?
Exactly.
So software and AI is never going to be able to replace that human intelligence that knows from experience.
And that's where we're talking about opportunities and challenges. It's both. This software and the data that's available to you is an opportunity if you're using it right. becomes a challenge. If you're sort of blindly going with it, and you're sat in a head office somewhere, and you're the buyer and never gets out and sees cars, I like to be able to sort of. I'm on Auto Trader all the time. I'm on CarWow. I'm on all the auction apps. I'm in it every day and seeing what cars are doing. And so to be a really, really good retailer of used cars, you have to understand the market and you have to see what's happening because it's changing all the time.
Yeah.
So much data available now, isn't there? And I think that unfortunately the reality for so many people is there's so much data, but there's never enough time to look at as much data as in an ideal world would like to. So if there's a busy sales manager, operations director listening right now, if they've only got 15 minutes extra in a week, where do you recommend they should really focus? What data should they look at?
You make a really good point. There is lots and lots of new software, lots and lots of portals for sales managers and general managers to log into. They can't log into everything. You've been into a dealership, Sam. You know how to run a dealership. You're spinning plates all the time. However, it's how you can surface the data and provide it in a way that operations director, a GM or sales manager knows how to use that. So, so operations directors, they'll just want to see the top level, where their dealers are, what the data's looking for. While a sales manager will want that action to say, okay, where should I price this vehicle? And some of the software that we provide to dealers is not a login. You'll supply them an email that when they're walking into that dealership, 8:30 in the morning, first thing they're looking at is, why has this vehicle got no images? Why are we priced it? What's going to be moved on it? And it can be action within half an hour. Then they've got those. They've gained those 3 or 4 hours back. Then they can do the daytime job of selling more cars and selling more service hours. That's where the benefits have to be because that's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of benefits of what we would classically call management by walking around. You don't really walk around your digital forecourt.
No, but you should view it. And you'd be surprised the amount that actually will walk around the forecourt and make sure that all those vehicles are lovely lined up.
Absolutely.
It's amazing. Right now, let's look at the forecourt. He looks after that.
Yeah,
does he?
exactly.
Okay, well, why is this image missing? Why is this image not right? Then why is this back?
I've had that situation so many times where like guys are out looking at, pull that forward a little bit. I said, right, how many people are going to see that car today? 50, 100 maybe if we're really, really busy. And of how many of those are actually interested in it? Yeah, okay. There's still clearly a very important place for your physical pitch. But now go look at how many advert views that car had on Auto Trader or our website yesterday.
Yeah.
Like 10 times the amount. So where's your focus? Where should your focus be? And the point around sort of making sure that you're on it is, yes, if you've got a big forecourt, you're not going to be looking at every car every single day without spending a lot of time. But the world of automation is here. And things can tell you where you are suboptimal. That car, for example, hasn't got an attention grabber. That car has got what appears to be a copy and pasted description. There's all sorts of tools out there. And this is where I see the development of it, where I don't want AI to take over our advertising of used cars because ultimately there's a massive skill in that. That is a human skill. Where the AI can come in and help is to say, right, okay, actually, that's a bit crap. Or I can tell you've copied and pasted that, or this, that, and the other. So
I've got to say though, sort of vehicle descriptions now. I mean, ChatGPT now for the last year has been around, and you can see now the quality that's been delivered through that. With that, you're telling the story, you're selling the story of that vehicle. And we put it into a franchise group first of all, and they never had descriptions. Unbelievable, never had. So we put it in. So from having no descriptions to overnight having these wonderful descriptions, but obviously you had to keep reviewing it. And when we first put it in place, the OEM fed back that we don't like this. 10 months later, the OEM is saying we want to roll this out to the rest of our group because now it's talking in the tone of voice, not only of the OEM, but the tone of voice of that dealership.
And that's ChatGPT.
And that was ChatGPT. And because it's learning. It's learning what to say. And now you've got these guys, and you look at it, and obviously when you see LinkedIn posts, when you see vehicle description with an emoji, please. It's so obvious.
ChatGPT loves an emoji, doesn't it? You can spot them.
But the classifieds hate them for obvious reason, but you shouldn't have, because it should be done in a way that you're telling the story of that vehicle and why they should buy it. The copy and paste. You go back 3 years ago, it was copy and paste, same thing. Or
capital letters.
Yeah.
Why are we always shouting?
Yeah. FSH as well, for full service history.
We know what it means, customers don't.
Yeah. Exactly.
Or everything was a manager special.
Yeah, absolutely. You made a really good point there, because how many advert views do you get? Now, this is a big focus that we look at is because this sits at the heart of a used vehicle strategy. And it's the vehicle detail-based views on your own website that counts, because that's the focus, and that's it. How many people have viewed that versus been onto your forecourt view? And one of the key KPIs that we focus on, that we're working, is understand, okay, what percentage of website traffic that's coming to my website is looking at my used VDPs and my new VDPs, because that's really what the dealer's interested in. What percentage of consumers, those in-market buyers, are looking at the stock on my own website? Through the classifieds, it's good, but I have a challenge on that because you can artificially inflate it. I had it in such a way that it was so artificially inflated recently, you couldn't see the wood for the trees, and everything was performing brilliantly. Actually, it wasn't. It's performing quite mediocrely. But the VDPs on your own website has to be the key KPI for used car retailing.
But also, like you say, making sure that number's not overinflated. Because I've seen it with marketing as well. I've seen where advertisers send a customer through straight to the VDP page, and the numbers look fantastic. They're bouncing straight off. Yeah. They're not looking. They're not converting.
Engagement's a key part there. That, absolutely. And we've seen the rise. I'm going off topic here, but we've seen the rise of Google vehicle ads.
Yep.
Okay, and everyone's saying, these are great. They're only great if you can monitor what's actually happening on the VDP, and if they've done enough, then you can go and retarget them, because that's where you're going to get the conversion coming back in the lead generated. The amount of agencies I've seen recently just switched on Google vehicle ads and just left it running. Well, anybody. Yeah,
because it's a new sexy product, isn't it?
Exactly. It's the retargeted to get them back to get the conversion, but it's the dealers that need to understand that, and that's where, we talk about this all the time. GA4, dealers that are not viewing GA4, not looking at what's happening with their percentage of VDPs, not looking for how the consumers were going through the site. They're missing out on opportunities. We try and educate dealers that GA4 is like one of your financial reports. You should be looking at Monday morning, going through that with, looking at each bit of data.
Completely.
Especially if you're spending a lot of money on customer on acquisition.
Absolutely, which everyone is. So yes.
Yeah, but I think it's surprising how many people spend so much money on marketing, and either the agency or them, they can't say what they've generated for that.
Yes.
We spent 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 grand.
Vanity metrics, impressions, clicks. Yeah. Okay, how's that helping the bottom line?
Which is fine if you go in knowing that that's what you're trying to achieve. You want to raise brand awareness, PR for another reason.
We're talking used car sales.
Sales.
Look at used car
Why
sales.
are we?
Absolutely. We're not at OEM level where we're trying to raise the brand.
Exactly.
You're looking at which one. I mean,
it has its place.
From your side, you're very switched on dealer. But dealers, what they typically want, they want leads, and how much is that lead cost? That's what the metrics are. All the VDP views or full page advert views or directions. That's great for a marketeer, and we charge high for that. But the operators, the dealers, how many leads have you generated? What is that cost per lead? Because that's going to result in my cost per lead. That's what dealers want. That's what they understand.
We've got to get someone qualified to generate a lead, pass it over to the sales team, and crack on.
I agree. I think it should be a crime for a supplier to spend £1 and not be able to tell you what you got for that.
Absolutely.
Send them to prison.
Well, it's interesting because it's there's been a lot of new marketing managers that have come across into the sector recently, and I've been speaking to a few of them about budgeting. They've not been involved in a budgeting process, and they won't be involved at top level budgeting process. But what they'll understand is actually your budget process will be what is the cost per sale times by the number of units. It's going to give you a marketing budget. Now it's your job where you're going to spend that marketing budget to get your best return.
Yeah. Before we started filming today, we were talking about EVs and electric cars. What do you think the opportunity is with EVs at the moment, used in particular? Where should we be focused?
I think this is the man to answer. I'll be honest with you. I think he's been at the forefront of EV retailing for the last 18 months.
I'm asking the perfect person.
I don't love EVs. I love retailing EVs. And people might think, what? Are you nuts? And actually, when old Elon did his big price slash last January, that was it. That was like the trigger point for everyone to go, no, thank you, not for me. And that was the point where I went, oh, great, these are cheap now. I can buy them without any competition. So I was buying them. All right, okay. Just to give a bit of context, I work with MG, and that is a very EV forward-thinking franchise. And it was, we got into it in 2020 and in Q4 2020. Right, okay, we can see that EVs are going to be where this the great volume driver is going to be. This is where we've got to invest a bit of time in understanding the market properly, which I did, and I did it early. But when it comes to used EVs, that market, it was a bit of a correction because they were overpriced to start with. Let's be honest. Bringing them back down to close to the counterparts on ICE needed to happen. The problem is that there was a lot of people with pre-reg, ex-demo stuff that had been burnt so badly. And I can understand it. If you've got 5 or 6, or even if you're on a more premium franchise than we have, you're taking 5-figure losses on each of your demos, and you go, actually, you know what? Nah, forget it. I don't want to touch it. So there's an opportunity there. So we got into it and started to understand, because it's a very nuanced product. Customers have to understand that buying an EV, especially a used EV, comes with different questions, different challenges, and it's not the same sale process, because you're not just changing your car, you're changing your, it sounds a bit corny, but you're changing your lifestyle a little bit, because it's not just your car. When you have an ICE car, the only thing you have to do is go put petrol in it. When you have an EV, you've got to think about things like, all right, well, do I need to change my home tariff? Because I'm now not paying for my fuel, I'm paying for my electricity. Where am I doing most of that? At home. So let's think about a home tariff charger. And you talk about charging cables, you talk about all the things that there's no sort of implied knowledge of EVs. So the role as a sales team changes for an EV than it does for an ICE vehicle, doesn't it? You've got to assume that somebody's knowledge is zero. And the people whose knowledge isn't zero, they don't want to speak to somebody who knows less than them. They're coming to the dealership to be educated a little bit, especially the ones who know a bit acknowledge and recognize when they can have a conversation with somebody who understands it, and you build trust straight away. So we took the decision in 2020, quite a while ago, that the market was going one way and one way only. As much as we can decide whether we like it or not, it was coming. And if you're not retailing EVs, certainly by now, but even if you're not retailing them in the next 2 years, we're talking about stock challenges and what can you buy? Well, in theory, next year, 28% of the new car registrations will be electric if we hit the targets and that sort of thing. So you're just fishing in a much smaller pool.
When like January happened, most franchise dealers run the other way. You ran towards that. We see the opportunity. I work with a small independent, and they got hit by Tesla, but they came back in the marketplace, and now I'd say they're one of the best specialist independent dealers in the UK. But the detail and the data they look at is absolutely every single day. They're looking at that data because they know. And to be honest with you, that vehicle, Elon's only got to make a change and it gets affected.
Oh, you are exposed. Yeah,
they see the data, but they also have what we spoke about. They do have a gut feel towards it where things are. But they're in that really niche market, that much smaller pool, but they do incredibly well at it. But they are completely data focused.
Well, that's interesting you mentioned that, because at the time where we started doing this, if our target stock turn for a used car is 30, 35 days, for an EV, it was like, right, 15. I need it to be gone much quicker than that, because this is not acting in the same way as an ICE vehicle. So if I'm sort of starting to not open a door on it within 5, 6, 7 days, everything's on fast forward. So my retailing decisions have got to be on fast forward as well, because if I'm not out of that car, if that becomes a 90-day car as an EV, I'm into some serious pain.
Yeah.
Now, fortunately, they were selling very, very quickly at that time, because if somebody wanted one, there wasn't that many retailers who were on it. Now, clearly, as more and more see that they've got to, then you've got a lot more independents who go, you know what, let's learn about this. But it's a contentious topic, isn't it? People are being forced into it. I can't sit here and profess to be an EV evangelist or anything. I just like commerce, and I see them as a chunk of metal you can sell. All right, you've got to learn how to sell them a bit differently, but it's a skill.
Yeah.
And how can dealers do better at selling them?
Like I say, I think it's got to be, you've got to embrace it, and you've got to understand that it's not the same sales process, and you've got to do a bit more work. If you imagine that ICE vehicles were invented 5 years ago, and you didn't have all this inherent knowledge from driving petrol cars for the last, however old you are, 20 years, whatever, what would you do to go and learn about how an engine works and try and explain to somebody how an engine works and clutch and all that sort of stuff? But it's similar. Like someone buying an EV doesn't know what on earth we mean by kilowatt hours, and why will that charge quickly and that one won't charge quickly, or why does my range say that it's going to go down by 50 miles if I put the heater on? What?
I think there's where the opportunity for content on websites on that side, and we still see it today where there's so much opportunity where we're not educating the consumer, or that particular website's not educating the consumer, and there's so much traffic to go after because as we know it's one of the increased keywords that consumers are searching for. So it's taking advantage. We see it with automotive AI software when we look at it, and we look at competitors. I think you've got nothing referring to electrification or what the benefits are. And if you can get away and become the destination site within the dealer format, there's so much to go after.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The big trigger point for me was when I looked at it, I was like, okay, so we're going to amend our website to allow us to advertise EVs. So that I saw some other dealers at the time where it said engine size, blank, miles per gallon, blank. I was like, all right, okay, so that's not set up. Then you look at all the publications that come out, like Fully Charged, the amount of views they get on YouTube, electrifying.com. All these third-party publications have sprung up to educate people about EVs because as an industry,
we're doing it
terribly. Yeah. So, listen, it's like I say, it's always going to be a contentious subject, but from our perspective, there's money in them. If you do the fundamentals of retailing really well, there's money to be made.
We're obviously coming up towards January, very busy month for the used car market. So for dealers listening now, what can they do to better prepare for January to make it a good month for them? Where should they focus their efforts?
I'll take this one from our side. What we're really focusing with the dealers is that they're getting through their stock in October because it's going to afford the opportunity to buy in November. You see, typically franchise dealers will be looking at a year end, so they usually have buying bans and reducing, which gives the opportunity to come into that marketplace in November. And look at what the market does. We before COVID and and last year we saw it. Okay, the market does go quieter in November and December. That is your time to buy because we know in January it will come back strong. It's going to be a strong market again next year. It will be buoyant. It's just making sure you've got all those key fundamentals in place, that you're monitoring your stock turn, reducing your days in stock, looking at that prep, looking at those KPIs, that you're really ready to get off for that strong month. And that usually starts December the 27th.
Perfect.
Ian's right. The only caveat, or the only slight difference from our perspective this year, is that the normal market we see in November, December is going to be slightly influenced by, there's potentially going to be some silly actions by manufacturers on the 31st of December to meet some targets potentially. So I will be making sure that certainly, listen, I've just waxed lyrical about retailing EVs. I want to buy more and more ICE cars now because the supply of those is dropping away. We've already talked about manufacturers limiting the supply of petrol cars in Q4. Q4 is going to be the crunch time. Everyone's known this is coming all year, but Q4 is when the numbers start to hit and the fines look quite tasty. So I think there's going to be a fair bit of action, and it's to keep an eye even on, obviously, on the franchises that we operate within. We know that, but for independents who stock late plate stuff, it's to be keeping an eye on what's happening in that market.
Thank you very much.
Are we done?
We're done.
Right,
unless you've got more you want to add.
I think we can talk all day.
I agree.
Armchair Marketing.